Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Ciaran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today we are talking about alternatives to Google Analytics.
So let's start by saying why we might want alternative to Google Analytics. So Universal Analytics, July 2023, shutting down. I keep saying July 2023, and I know that Google's going to make an announcement going, yeah, we've extended it. It's like, we said all that. But anyway, let's just see what happens. July 2023, they're sunsetting. They're kind of getting rid of it. It's not going to collect data anymore. We need to move to GA4. So far, people are struggling to set GA4 up properly. They are seeing there's a learning curve that's quite steep. And they are also seeing that it's limited in the number of reports compared to Universal Analytics.
When there's only 6 months to go and it still seems to be quite a bit of a work in progress, which is a bit alarming.
That's it. So is it 6 months? Lord, it's 6 months.
Yeah, they've just also recently announced they're sunsetting Google Optimize.
Because that's going to be built into Google Analytics for A/B testing, but it's not there yet. Is it? Yeah, I know.
It's sunset it before we have the alternative, and it's kind of what they've almost done with GA4, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
sort of pushing everybody over.
Move over to a product that's not quite ready yet. But I'm going to change my tune on this.
Are you?
I think GA4 is great.
Yeah.
Right, because I've started playing with the custom reports, so the explorations and the report customizations. Yeah. And I could see how you've got so much more flexibility. You can bring external data in.
If you've set it up right.
And if you can just get your head around it, and you can get your head around Tag Manager, because without Tag Manager, it's your coders, your technical people are going to be involved a lot more. Plus, I'm going to caveat this entire conversation. When you look at Google Ads now, the first thing that happens when you go in says, what are your objectives? And then it leaps into your analytics and works out what you've set as your goals in analytics. And it says optimize for these things. Now, bear in mind what we've said in the past few episodes, or before that, was that Google seemed to be moving to an AI-based model, so using machine learning to learn and then optimize. Well, for that to work, they need an objective. And the machine learning is looking at your analytics objectives, looking at your analytics data and using that to work out what was working and what doesn't work. If you're not using Google Analytics, that machine learning algorithm is not going to have the same level of data. So I think you will be at a slight disadvantage. Now, what I'm saying is reasonably speculative, because we don't actually know how the machine learning algorithms are working, but we do know as part of your ad setup, it is telling you what you've got to set as your goals in your analytics. So it is looking at your analytics goals. You can change that manually, so you can do some things in there, but I think potentially you put yourself at a slight disadvantage, and that would make sense.
So I agree and disagree with that.
Okay.
So on the one hand, I think fundamentally that's true, but I also know it's possible using various APIs with lots of different ad networks to automatically pull out your conversion data.
Yep, that's true.
So that's the crucial thing, is that you need to supply the ad platforms with your conversion data and evaluate those conversions, and then the AI can try and get more people like that, or more more sales like that. It just
won't have the analytics data behind the scenes as much in terms of tracking through what people are doing on your website, all that, multi-visit,
multi-channel
tracking.
visit.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where it's going to kind of be a trouble. So I think my gut feeling for myself is I'm going to go GA4.
Yeah.
If I want some other reports, I might supplement that with something else. Yeah. But I want GA4 in place, at least with the event set up properly, so that my Google Ads can really can work really effectively.
Yeah.
If I don't care about Google Ads, maybe I don't care about this. Okay. So we have a report on the Target Internet website that goes through all of these alternatives looked at in detail. Okay. So as normal, targetinternet.com/podcast. You'll find all the show notes, all the links, all that kind of stuff as well. We've gone through and looked at Adobe Analytics, Fathom Analytics, Piwik Pro Analytics Suite, Matomo, and Aribi. Okay. You also mentioned something that was looking at cookies, so we'll kind of get into that cookie consent side of things as well. Let's go through these at a reasonably high level. Talk about our first impressions and what we think and so on as well. And then we'll hear from other people as well. Right, my history with Adobe Analytics is not a great one, in that I would do training courses and I would, 99 times 100%, what analytics are you using? And they would say Google Analytics. And I'd be like, excellent. I know that inside out. I can go and look at that. Could you give me a login? I'll go and explore it. Now and again, someone would say Adobe Analytics, and I'd be like, oh dear, okay, right. Don't know as much about this. Haven't really got as much hands-on experience. So then I'd go, can I have access? And invariably they go, oh, the team that do that, then, oh, yeah, no, I don't know if they'll do that. Okay. And the basic, everyone would say, Google Analytics, easier to use out of the box. Adobe Analytics, more customizable, and therefore good for enterprise kind of level organizations. Okay. But you've also got Google Analytics 360, the professional kind of version as well. What I would then do is do a search online for Adobe Analytics documentation and find, just by nature, the fact that Google have got like 80 whatever % market share they've got, there's not as much tutorials, there's not as many videos online, there's not as much explanation stuff. And actually, the way that people set Adobe up is more customized, therefore it's not as easy to learn.
In my experience, it's a bit more of a walled garden. So actually Adobe, I've got a ton of stuff. Yep. If you're not on the platform...
If you're not using everything on their platform.
Well, not even that, but if you're not on their platform, you haven't sort of got public access to it, and it wouldn't be relevant really. Like, it is quite a specialist product. I used it at a big retailer I work with.
Right.
Interestingly, they had both Universal Analytics and
a very big retailer,
Adobe.
always with like a big supermarket chain.
Yeah.
They had both versions running as well, different things for different situations.
And the reason that they'd invested in Adobe was because they hit the usage limits on the free version of Google Analytics.
Right.
When they looked at it, I think like Adobe really ticked a lot of the boxes for their data analysts, because all the data was very get-atable.
Right.
They could data warehouse it and look at it from a billion different angles and build all sorts of interesting models.
Right.
So they loved that. But that was where, as a marketer, I hated it, because actually I couldn't get to what I wanted. It actually reminds me of my initial experience with using GA4, where the reports you want just aren't there. You have to get somebody to custom build them. And you can literally have anything you want almost. It's quite phenomenal. But essentially, it still works on exactly the same
principles.
Premise.
I mean, look, by the way, so anyone from Adobe listening or is a big Adobe Analytics fan, get in contact. We're happy to hear that voice and have you on here and talk about it, because it's just something, I guess, that we've had certain experiences of. So,
what is the main reason that someone would choose Adobe Analytics over GA4?
So it used to be.
Well, one of the biggest ones is that it's not Google.
Yeah.
And you own your data.
Right.
What Adobe are doing is they're providing you with the platform and the data. They're not using that data. It's not being, there's no question that Adobe are going to anonymize it and use it to enhance your competitors' campaigns, for example. And I'm not suggesting that's necessarily what Google does, but there's always a question mark in people's minds, I think, as well. How much, if I'm an extremely huge international corporation, how much data do I want to make available to a big tech company like Google? That's a consideration, right?
Right. And the other thing is that, for example, Adobe have got some great automation tools. So it makes sense if you're using all of that stuff, you might integrate this stuff together. It always used to be for me, like, you would use Adobe Analytics if you needed to do more customization. If you had like a really custom platform you wanted to integrate into. Whereas GA4, you can do a lot of that stuff now.
Is it free? Because some of the tools we've got here are
No, it's not. That's the thing as well. So it was a commercial thing used by large, and it's expensive.
But you must always ask, when something's free, are you the product?
Yeah. And is that data being used?
That data is being used. So actually, there really isn't any such thing as free online. It's really interesting. We look at various reports that quantify how much is your personal Facebook account worth to Facebook, because of course they're taking that user data, and that's being used to monetize the Facebook Meta product to advertisers, and actually quite huge sums of money can be in order. So I think that's what a lot of people like about independent, and quite a few of these are like fiercely independent analytics companies.
Yeah, open source. Some of the others.
It's all about it being your data and not somebody else's. And you having complete control over where it's stored and how it's used.
So let's move on to the next one, which is one we've played around with a bit already and probably mentioned, which is Fathom Analytics, because they position themselves as, we solve the problems that GA4 is kind of, is giving you. It's easier, it's simpler, it gives you what you need, but also it's very good from a privacy point of view. And they've done this whole thing about, and I'm really interested in this, because you said this to me, right, is that they've said, data's really more accessible and it's good for the privacy rules. Plus, you can set up a subdomain to hide us from any of the cookie blockers and ad blockers. Yep. The two things don't sound compatible to me at all, to say, we're much more transparent about data, plus we can sneak behind the ad blockers. Right?
Yes. Yes. But you see, the problem is that some of the admins that control the development of the ad blockers are extremely aggressive on what they allow and who allow. So you've got a situation where somebody like Fathom Analytics, and there are other like similar operators.
I'm not blaming this on Fathom. This is for a lot of people.
So they're cookieless, right? So they're not tracking people like something like Universal Analytics would do with various cookies. They do actually use cookies, but they're deleted every 24 hours. So there's no question that there could be any personally identifiable information in there. And yet some of the ad blocker admins will just go, but it's analytics, we're blocking it. Yeah. We don't care. And it's like, but we're the good guys. No, you're not. No, it's tracking, it's measurement, we're not having any of it. And so they're making it a lot harder by using subdomains. Because what all the systems will do is go, look, if this domain's involved in any of the cookie, JavaScript, if any of these like domain names are involved, block it. Don't send any data, which is kind of a bit harsh. Because actually, these things are needed to make stuff work.
Well, the whole cookies thing, the reason we have cookies is so we can extend the functionality of the web. Because without it, you just browse from page to page, no e-commerce, no social media, no nothing.
Be like CFAX all over again.
Pretty much again, exactly. So I won't say for those people that haven't got a clue what CFAX is, but we did this in the previous episode.
Just Google it.
Google it, exactly. CFAX it. Yeah. Okay. So Fathom, my thing about Fathom was that I went, is this it? Like I went through and it's got the basic stuff I want there, and you can drill into event tracking and all those kind of things a bit more. But I was like, attribution modeling, that kind of stuff. It's not really got the depth I wanted in there, and so on. So I like it. It's a nice, and I actually think they're on a winning streak from the point of view that if you want something simple, get it up and running, and just have reporting data, it's there. It's low cost, and it's going to give you what you need for a lot of people.
I think so. A lot of people don't need all the bells and whistles.
They don't.
And it, like, just give me the data that I need. Like, I want to know what did I do that works and what didn't work so well, so I can do more of what worked and less of what doesn't. And actually, that's enough. And even the people with access to multi-funnel attribution systems, let's be honest, they don't use it, and not enough people in the organisation understand what it all means or understand all the nuances of it.
I was trying to work this out the other day. So how many people that we work with client-wise and stuff like that are actually using attribution modelling? And I reckon it's less than 5%. Okay, just because...
But even then, it'll only be a tiny core group that actually understand what's going on, and everyone else is just like, that's what they do. They're doing great. Exactly. Let them get on with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you've got Fathom. Again, we'll put everything in the show notes, targetinternet.com/podcast. Right, Pyrrhic Pro Analytics Suite. This has been around for a while, right? And that's an advantage because it gives you the opportunity to have a tried and tested product. There's probably a balance between depth of reports and privacy. So they're addressing all the privacy stuff. So one of the things we should mention is that Google Analytics, I think currently Universal Analytics is banned. Is it 4 EU countries or something like that as well? And there's all sorts of discussion that the EU are going to ban it, and so, which is why GA4 has been moved to, because it didn't deal with privacy in the way they liked. Yeah. There was too much personal information potentially. Although Google Analytics doesn't allow you to collect personally identifiable information.
In the terms and conditions, they require you not to.
Yeah,
the problem is, it's really easy to be doing that without even realising.
Because you can put an email address into a URL and things like that. Yeah. Okay. So Pyrrhic Pro, a lot of people say this is the most balanced solution. It gives you in-depth reports. It does all that stuff that Google Analytics did. But also it gives you some of the privacy options. You can change privacy by country level and all those kind of things as well. I've played with that previously. It's a nice interface. They keep updating it. So there's a lot of positive things being kind of said about it.
So with a few of these, because obviously a couple of the different analytics tools excel in different areas, would you recommend choosing one analytics tool and sticking with it, or sort of implementing multiple ones and using them for their...
We always use multiple tools. They might not be like analytics tools, but we've got screen recorders and heat map tools and all those things. So I would say work out what data you need. It's very easy to go, we need all the data, and you just install these things, and then suddenly your website's going really slowly. And that's where you've got to be careful, is that if you've got too many things installed, you're going to have so much JavaScript running in the background. Yeah. Now, that's one of the things Fathom, there's very little code in the background. It's super, super fast. It's great. It tends to be the more data and reporting you've got, the more it might potentially slow things down, but not always. GA4 is pretty lean in terms of that. So I would go, you need a selection, but don't record data for the sake of recording it. Work out what you actually need that you're actually going to use, right?
And you can find as well sometimes if you're looking at multiple sources of analytics data, sometimes there's differences in what comes back, and then it's difficult to know what to
So my favourite one at the moment with this is Universal Analytics and GA4 just don't give you the same answers at all. And I'm not talking like 2% difference. We're talking 20% in some cases. Now, it's got better as time, but they just... I think the fair point, when Google asked about this, they went, just different. They record data in different ways. It's not giving you like-for-like results, which is why you can't take your old Universal Analytics data and dump it into GA4, because it'd be like, here's some apples, chuck them in with some oranges.
Yeah. It
just isn't the same kind of thing. So it is a challenge. Matomo, this is the one I'm quite excited about. So, Ciaran, you were taking a look at this.
Yeah, they've got a lot of things that I really, really like. So
2 versions, right?
Yeah, so you've got an open source version which you can install on your own, like,
so in your own servers, right? So you
Yeah.
need a bit of technical knowledge, but you can do that.
You would.
That's free.
Well,
but
it
it's not.
is free,
Yeah.
but what's interesting is when you look at some of the costs involved if you want to add some of the more dynamic services. So they've got, I was really blown away. They've got heat map integrations. They've got user screen recordings. There's all sorts of additional bells and whistles and like conversion rate optimization tools. So actually it's doing a lot more than just your analytics. You get that all as standard if you're paying for it monthly via their cloud service, but some of those are quite expensive if you've got it on your own service.
Yeah, on your own service, it's like $150 a month and so on. Whereas the full version is $17 a month.
Yeah, well, that's a sort of a start. I think it was 17 euros.
Right,
I think
okay,
they're doing euros. But the thing with that is it's based on website visits.
Okay.
Right. So if you get, I think that's like 50,000 visits. That's pretty
a lot, right?
That's a
Yeah,
lot,
exactly.
right? So it goes up if you've got millions of visitors.
Yeah,
It's going to get a bit more expensive, but it's very scalable. I think when you start to compare it to something like Adobe Analytics, which is a ton of money up front, even just to get it configured, and they seem to have quite a good support network and running some really interesting online educational things, and they're very open to integrating with lots of different platforms. One of the interesting angles they shared with me this morning on a webinar I watched was actually you can integrate both Universal or GA4 and this. Why would you do that? Well, because this is cookieless. Right, you don't require. So if you've got a situation where you're asking for people's permission, which you need to do for something like GA4, you need to get that cookie permission to be legal in a lot of countries. The problem you've got there is you could be missing quite a lot of your data. I've looked at some of my clients that do this.
This is what we were talking about.
Yeah, really interesting. And for this particular client, like in the UK, about 83% were opting in to all the standard cookies and marketing stuff, which is fine. It's not really going to create a huge issue.
It's enough to look at it and go,
yeah, it is.
I mean, it might be that 17% that didn't act slightly differently because they are more privacy focused, but generally I think it's enough.
Yeah, so this particular client have a lot of clients or potential customers who are conspiracy theorists, shall we say, right? And actually, a lot of them do purchase a lot of their product. It's very in tune with that kind of line of thinking. And actually in this situation, that 15-20% that you're missing could be really, really vital. So that's where, something like this comes in, where actually say, look, actually have cookieless as well. And that gives you, you can do all sorts of things. Like you can use your server logs. Remember them, web server logs? Yeah. We've all got them. They sit on your web server and they count, what files get requested. And actually used to do server log analysis back in the day. You still did some...
Right, history lesson here for Louise, I'm guessing.
It's like, what is this? What is this?
So you used to go onto your server, you'd FTP onto your server and you'd download this 2 gigabyte
massive
text file. This ridiculously big text file. And then you'd put it through a piece of an analysis software and you go, right, I'll be back, a cup of tea, back in half an hour to have a look at it. And you'd go, but my analytics is telling me I've got 10,000, this is 50,000. Yeah. Your server logs track Google visiting, all the bots visiting, all that kind of nonsense as well. But they could give you detail that you couldn't get. And some people will still do it.
But it's an interesting thing. You can integrate this with this platform and that nothing can block that because your server's serving it up.
That's very true.
So very, very solid, this is a good source of truth.
Oh, I'm just thinking so if your cookie control policy is about your cookies and what you're tracking with
yes, it is.
It doesn't say what we're recording on our website.
Yeah.
So if your server logs are recording things, from a privacy point of view, ethically you need to tell people you're doing it. But I'm not sure how the EU rules would state about that.
Depends what it's tracking, right? This is the thing. It's all about personally identifiable
and if it's
information.
not personal,
And that's what I loved about their platform is that they give you the ability to control that.
Yeah.
So
and a country level as well, right?
And a country level. So you can say, look, I want to make sure that my analytics is secure and legal in this country. And I go, yeah, you need to sort of set it at that sort of level. So they've got some really great smarts, and it integrates with a ton of stuff that you would want to integrate.
Definitely
with.
one to look at, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a closer look at this and get this set up and do some trialing with it. So we'll come back to you and talk about it in the near future. The last one was Aribi, and Aribi is not actually launched at the point of this episode coming out, but it's one that's been purchased by Microsoft and is going to be for LinkedIn users. And I think what's happened here is that LinkedIn have realised that if people aren't moving to GA4 quickly enough, you're going to be doing LinkedIn ads, but you might not have enough data to really work out how effective ads are doing. Now, this takes me back to, why does Google give away Google Analytics for free? Well, they give it away for free so that you can optimize your website and make more money by spending more money on Google ads. They're doing this for a reason, so it kind of makes sense. Bearing in mind that Google originally bought Ciaran Analytics, a commercial package, and then just gave it away for free, which was massively disruptive in the market from that point of view. Useless fact of the day, UTM codes. I told some of my students this the other day, and they looked... I've never seen people look more bored in their life. It was funny. Just, shall I tell you a really useful fact? And they were like, yeah, go on. They're expecting something quite different. UTM codes is because of Urchin, right? I mean,
Urchin tracking
management. Module on management. Okay, fine. Yeah. So it came from the fact this was bought. And I told them all this, and they were like, do I care?
Right.
No, probably not really.
It's like, meh.
But yeah, exactly. I thought it was really useful. Historical facts, little historical thing left in the code.
I live for the moment. It'll pop up in a pub quiz.
Exactly.
And only I will know the answer.
Who wants to be a millionaire? Number,
and
the
at the end of the evening,
question.
everybody will be cheering my name and carrying me across the bar. No,
I think this is highly unlikely to happen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In
But
my
anyway,
mind.
we can geek
Welcome
your dream.
to Planet Kieran.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea of Aribi is that if you're doing LinkedIn ads, you'll get access to this for free, as far as I understand, and it will give you loads of analytics for your website in more detail, but help you to optimize your LinkedIn campaigns. Microsoft, obviously owning LinkedIn, have done this in a really smart way. They'll get more data. They already have analytics tools. So I think it's a smart move. Your reaction to this was like, it's just another big company having your data. Whereas I love Microsoft at the moment. I think they're doing so much cool stuff. They've gone through this like, Microsoft, big corporate, so uncool. And now they're the people, their CEO, I saw the CEO speak. She was amazing. And she basically said, look, we're not a cool brand. We're not trying to be a cool brand, like Google and Apple. We make you look cool.
Nice.
What's
in it for me?
I like that, right? Yeah. And if you look at the fact, they've got screen recording software that they give away for free and things like that. The whole ChatGPT ownership thing, they've done some very clever stuff around that because they'll own it. But that means it has to sit on Azure servers using up all their bandwidth and getting paid to do that. So the bigger it becomes, the more money they'll make from that. So I think they're doing some clever things. I like to think this is clever.
Aribi's been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
For years, they seem to stalk me with YouTube ads.
I haven't come across it. I knew it around. I don't know it.
I've had loads of them. So very aware the way they position themselves is that we're really simple. Like we'll give you the answers you need without wading through it. The video, like go along to aribi.io. We'll put a link in the show notes.
And it's got like it's got Google Analytics versus Instagram Analytics.
Yeah, well, there's two guys and they're asking questions, and the guy with the Aribi t-shirt's just coming up with answers like on a card, right. and the Google Analytics guy's just buried in reams of data.
But they're actually dropping stuff on his head.
It's very funny.
They're dropping files on his head. It is quite an effective video. I picked that one up.
It's funny when it's not happening to you.
Yeah, that's true. That's also true. Yeah, it doesn't happen. So there you go. So there's a load of alternatives in there. We've got that full in-depth review that will give you a bit more insights and all the links and all the free trials and all those kind of things. targetinternet.com/podcast. As normal, we want to hear, what are you doing about this? Are you moving to J4? Are you trying other things as well? And what are you finding from these packages?
And the one caveat on that, because I think this is really important, that Google haven't given any indication of how long they're going to let you still access your universal analytics data.
I thought that it was the end of the year.
They'd indicated that for a time period, and people have surmised maybe it'll be January, like 2024.
I thought you told me end of 2023.
Well, I've not.
Did you make it up?
That's the inference.
Okay.
Like nobody knows for.
There's a lot of
for
inference
sure.
when it comes to Google.
Yeah, there are. But this is a big problem for a lot of organisations. Like right now.
Yeah, in business, not knowing stuff is not a great thing.
No, but
particularly in a really changing environment.
But simply having 10, 15 years worth of your analytics data wiped potentially. And actually they have given you the ability of exporting it and pulling it into
something
Google
else.
Data Services or something else. But actually, I don't really want to do that. I know I can download it, but how am I going to use it? Like you download a massive spreadsheet of 15 years. Wait, what? I'm not going to be able to get answers from that. I literally am going to be like that guy in the Aribi video, just buried in paper. And that's one of the real killer features I'm very excited about Matomo, is that they have this feature where you can import it.
It's import your universal analytics.
Import your universal analytics. And the fact that I can do that means then I can analyze it and look at it in graph and visual format, which I understand.
Yeah.
And that's great. Even though your apples and oranges, it's not going to be necessarily the same as what you're now collecting, because the way we collect data and the angles that we have on it are definitely changing. But you can still access it. That's a huge plus.
So this is an interesting one to finish up on then, because what these tools are really about is IA, not AI. Okay, so AI, artificial intelligence. Yeah. IA was something that was talked about years ago.
What is this? IA?
Intelligence amplification. i.e., because you've got the data in a visual format, your brain can cope with that. It kind of amplifies your ability to deal with it.
Yes.
Okay? The amount of data is not the key thing. It's really about having the data represented in a usable way, which is what Aribi have been quite clever at talking about. And actually, by taking your universal analytics data and being able to visualize it still in the future, year-on-year reports, etc., assuming we think they're like for like, it's amplifying our ability to interpret that data. So that's what these tools should be doing. One, two, or multiple tools doesn't matter. What do I actually want to get out of it? Can it do that? Can it do it in a way that's private? Does it do it in a way that's appropriate from a legal point of view and is in line with what my users want? Those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves as well. But I go back to my caveat. If you're using Google Ads, be careful of moving away from Google Analytics. It may put you at a slight disadvantage.
And speaking of Google Analytics as well, we have the masterclass.
Yeah, of course we do. Yeah.
So smooth.
Segued in.
So smooth.
So 21st of February, we're doing a half-day masterclass. We've run this one before. You can go targetinternet.com/GA4. You can sign up there and get involved. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us about your analytics journey and where that's going. And as ever, thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast.
Please subscribe for more videos like this and visit targetinternet.com for more free digital marketing resources.